Alright everyone, so we've completed our first jump of the animation. Now we're going to do the second jump of the character jumping onto this box. Now we're going to utilize the same timing that we have here, but it will be a bit different. So we'll still use, so the only difference is we noticed that we had to put in a hold from frame 0 to 20 where the character would be doing nothing. So we copy the keyframe at frame 0, or we copy it at, we paste it at frame 20. So that what happens is that from frame 20 to 33, the character will have a better antic into the jump. Now, what we can do for the second jump is that we can hold the character for a period of time so that it gives it a bit more realism that when he jumps onto the box here, he pauses for a bit, then he gets back into the antic and then completes the second jump. So, or what you could do if you want, you can have the character jump on the box and then immediately get ready to go into the second jump. But what we're going to do this time, we're going to hold the character for a bit before we get him into the antic. So what we're going to do, we're going to hold him for another 20 frames. So from frame 60 to around frame 80, we're going to do another hold. So frame 80 is that, so what we're going to do, we're going to copy the same keyframe that is at frame 60 and paste it at frame 80. Or we could just simply create another keyframe there. So what we could do, we could highlight this, go to frame 60, right click, copy that keyframe, go to frame 80 and paste it again. So between frames 60 and 80 he won't be doing anything. And what we observe from the hold position to the antic position, that is a difference of 13 frames. So we're going to utilize that difference in timing for the second jump. So between the hold and the antic, that's a difference of 13 frames. So in this case, it would be from frame 80 going up to frame 93. That would be a difference of 13 frames. So that is when he gets back into his second antic. We're just going to pose this character, put a bit of squash here, maybe lean the body, tilt the body like this, and push it forward. Once we're satisfied with this pose, I'm just going to adjust the range slider here so we get access to more frames. We're going to once we're satisfied with this pose, we'll highlight everything and press S. Make sure we're on frame 93 and press S. Alright. So we'll have the second antic. So he's doing nothing between frame 60 and 80, and then from frame 80 to 93 he gets into his antic pose. This pose needs to be a bit more exaggerated though, so we'll push it down a bit. Then what we observe, the difference, we're going to go into the takeoff pose. We know that that is a difference of around 5 frames from frame, sorry, that's a difference of 6 frames. So we're going to now say, alright, from frame 93 going up to 99 is when he would then get into the takeoff position. Pose him like that, tilt him forward a bit. So we're repeating the same procedure to get him into the second jump. It's just that you're working out the difference in timing. Point these down. I'm going to have to adjust this one a bit, like this. Because remember that we're working with 3-dimensional space, so we have to rotate the camera to ensure that our character is posed properly. We just don't want to depend on one view, to make sure that it is posed properly. So notice that the toes are sinking into the box, so we're going to turn on the toe roll. I'm going to go to highlight both of them, go to the toe roll. So minus 30 was the previous value, so we can type in minus 30 or any value that works. I think that value wants to be adjusted, so I'll just bring it up a little bit more. around minus 37. That looks good. We're going to the top part here. We're going to put a bit of stretch on the top part of the pose like that. We want to tilt the body forward. We want to maintain the same key poses that we have. So it would be the same takeoff pose, same antic, same mid-air pose, same contact, same squash, same. So we'll repeat in the process. Don't come up with new poses. Follow the same formula in terms of the key poses. Consistency is very important. Leaning this forward. I'm going to rotate this up like that. Once we're satisfied with the pose, highlight everything and press S. Then we're going to look back at the timing data. The difference between 39 and 42 is a difference of 3 frames. So it takes 3 frames. So we know from the data that it takes from the takeoff position going up into the mid-air position, that's a difference of 3 frames. So that will be at around 102. So what we're going to do, remember to use the triangle to move the entire character from off the ground. Move that up. Move the character up in the air. Then we're going to move him forward. Rotate to make sure that he's in the right position. Roughly around there. There would be the mid pose. We're going to take the stretch from after the main body. We're going to move the feet up in the air. We're going to get that mid-air pose. I have to now move the knee controls, to prevent the knees from snapping backwards. I'm going to move the knee controls forward to prevent any snapping. Notice we're now in the mid-air pose. We still have the toe roll on. So we're going to select this foot control and that foot control. And in the channel box, we're going to put that to around the toe roll back to 0. So that the legs are pointed like that. We can mix things up a bit. On the other side, we had this foot pointing up. We could have this foot pointing up instead. So we're going to rotate this foot up like that. Move it forward with the move tool. And then you have this foot pointing down, but it will come down a bit like that. So yeah, that looks about good. So just highlight everything and press S. Remember, we're trying to get the mid-ear pose. Then the next pose will be the contact pose. And we know from the data that the difference between the hang time pose and the contact pose is a difference around 5 frames. So from frame, going back into Maya, from frame 102 to around 107, difference of 5 frames. Just going to now pose the character back into the contact pose. And this is just pretty much the procedure if you want him to continue to jump. Stretch the foot out like that. Move this forward. Rotate this back so. Like that. Going to apply a bit of stretch on the top part here. Going to rotate this foot up like that. Move this forward like that. Straighten this foot. Rotate this up. Move that up. So now getting the right pose, is very tricky. So we have to make sure that we spend a lot of time getting our pose right. We can move this down a bit so there's contact with the ground. We're going to make the box transparent so I can see this foot control here. So remember to make the box transparent. Remember earlier we placed the box on a layer. So all we have to do is go to the box layer and turn it to T. And the box becomes transparent in wireframe mode. We're going to rotate this up. You know, animators, they spend a lot of time making sure that the poses are perfect or almost perfect, so that, you know, you can get strong animation. This part here wants to tilt back like that. Right, so we have a contact pose. Once we're satisfied with the pose, highlight everything, press S. And as you can see, the process is repeating again. Take off pose, mid-air pose, contact pose. So once you set up the key poses in Maya, Maya will automatically spline and fill in the in-betweens. Going back to the data, we know that the difference between the contact pose and the squash pose is a difference of 3 frames, because 47, 50, that's a difference of 3 frames. So we know that it takes 3 frames to move from the contact pose into the squash pose. So right now we're 107, so the next 3 frames would be at 110. All we have to do is just pose back the character. Rotate it like that. We're going to remove the stretch from off this into a squash. And we're going to make the box transparent so I can get a handle of the foot controls. Rotate them down so that the feet are flat on the ground. Put that to R. Going to move the body forward, because remember, when he's landing, he'll have a bit of forward momentum, and then, you know, he's squashing down like that. Maybe the body would be tilted a bit. This foot looks like it's sinking too much, so we want to elevate it up some more. See, notice what I'm doing? As a beginner, you have to get into the habit of rotating around your camera, because you want to ensure that all angles, that the character is posed correctly in all angles. It's 3-dimensional space we're dealing with, so it's very important to rotate around your character. To highlight the character and press S. And just as a reminder, to tumble or rotate around your character, you hold down the Alt button and the left mouse button and drag around to rotate your camera. So let's look at what we have. So we have the standing pose, antic, take off, mid-air pose, contact, squash, and of course, you know, we have the settle pose, which we know is a difference of 8 frames. So if we are at 110 frames, here was the last key pose, we know that 118 would be the recovery when he comes back up. Now to position him up, rotate him like that, maybe push him back a bit. Want to put some stretch on this, bring him up a bit more. Alright, that looks like it could be a recovery. Highlight everything, press S. And we know that the recovery, well, settle, that's what I meant, the squash to the settle. Recovery would be a next 2 frames. That is what gives it that little bounce at the end. So another 2 frames after 118, that would be 120. He probably comes down back a bit. The legs probably come down a little bit like that. And we're going to take off some of the squash on the top part. Highlight everything and press S. And let's see what we have. We have that little bounce there. Let's play the animation and see what we have. Okay, notice we have a little bounce at the end, but we have the character jumping, and you know, we can see that he's maintaining, he has a nice arc to the jump. So that is what we want to get with our anime. So you just repeat the process. If you want to do a third jump, all you have to do is just work out the difference in the timing, because we've collected the timing data.